Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Sustainability continues to be a hot topic in agriculture. We've got the latest beef industry research on this important subject. Plus, see how having the right data can make your operation more efficient and profitable.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Ochsner. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association works every day to advance the economic, political, and social interest of the U.S. cattle business, and to be an advocate for the cattle industry's policy positions and economic interests. We had a chance to ask attendees at the recent Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA trade show why they value the organization.
I am an NCBA member because I love this industry. I love the people in this industry, and I love the cattle that we all care about. And I think there is no better way to advocate for this industry than to be a part of NCBA. I can't expect for change to happen unless I'm willing to be a part of it. So that would be why I'm a member of NCBA.
I am an NCBA member because there's a lot of things going on all kinds of levels, both in the both state government and national government, that we have people watching every day that I don't have time to do while I'm home running my operation.
So NCBA is such a huge coalition of the variety of producers and feedlot operators, so that we can have a unified voice through our vote in leadership to represent us in Washington, D.C. and affect laws that will trickle that back down to us.
I'm an NCBA member, so I can network with fellow cattlemen, and we can discuss about current issues in each one of our areas and figure out a way to all work together.
You know, it's a resource for education. And, you know, I've done a lot of learning because of it. I love Cattlemen to Cattlemen and all of the other programming that's offered. You know, it's an educational resource, and like I said earlier, education is invaluable.
Our family is NCBA members because we want to stay in touch with the latest information and news regarding the cattle industry on a national level instead of just a local level, especially government regulations that are happening down in Washington that we may not know about in our hometown.
I'm an NCBA member because it's important to run with a pack. I can't do this. I can't do the things that NCBA does individually by myself, and by working with like-minded members, we can pool our resources and we can be an influence in Washington, D.C. We can be an influence with the checkoff. It keeps me up to date on the most current things that are going on in our nation and with our industry, and so I think it's very important that people get involved.
When we ask cattlemen and women why they value NCBA, one of the most common answers is because of the work done in Washington, D.C. And joining us now to talk more about these efforts is Mark Isley. He's the chair of NCBA's Policy Division. Mark, begin by just telling us a little bit about your operation.
Well, we're cow-calf stocker operation there in the southeast corner of Wyoming. Cheyenne's where we call home. And it's a family-run operation. An all-natural program, and we're lucky to be there and glad to be there.
Absolutely. And so as we talk about your role in the policy division, maybe tell some of our viewers just how policy is developed within NCBA.
Well, it's not an exclusive thing. It comes from the grassroots up. Mm-hmm. Local cattlemen groups come to the state affiliates with ideas, resolutions, and bring them forward, and then we work it up to NCBA. It goes through our proper committees, and then it comes to us for decision, discussion, and we move forward with it if possible. Very grassroots.
You know, there's been lots of challenges these last 12, 18 months for the cattle industry, and many of those involve policy-related issues. Talk to us about 2 or 3 of the top priorities from a policy perspective that NCBA is working on.
Well, everyone's pretty much aware of the market transparency, price discovery, those kind of things. Environmental issues, the big issues are climate. We know that. But right now, I think the one we may be focusing on the most is taxes. We've got to get a handle on this tax situation. We've got to make sure that it's fair, that it's properly based. Genetics, feed supplies, transportation, all those things will be negligible if they tax us out of existence. And that's genuinely what we're looking at and considering to be the possibility. And we don't want that to happen.
Well, the voice on Capitol Hill is critically important for all of us in agriculture and specifically in the beef cattle industry. Why is it so important for us to have a strong membership base within NCBA in order for you all to be effective and successful?
Strength in numbers. It's absolutely about strength in numbers. We go to those guys, they know who their constituents are, they understand that there's lots of folks who have that voice, who have those feelings out in the country, and they want to move forward with something that's positive, something that's effective. So NCBA is a conduit for that, works well.
Very good. Well, we'll look forward to talking to you many times in the future. Thank you so much for coming to our show.
Pleasure's all ours. Thank you for having us.
Now, if you'd like to stay up to date on key issues and events from DC, one way is by becoming a member of NCBA. You'll receive the Beltway Beef newsletter. That's a weekly report straight from Washington that gives a summary of top policy initiatives that could impact your business. Joining is easy. Just call 866-233-3872, or you can visit the website ncba.org. Still ahead on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll show you how NCBA is working to better understand consumers and their views about the beef industry. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stressors that trigger bovine respiratory disease are all around. So when you spot BRD in your herd, turn to Zuprevo, the fast that lasts. Zuprevo is rapidly absorbed in as little as 45 minutes and lasts up to 28 days. Because in the race against BRD, you need to win. Ready, set, Zuprevo. In case of human injection, seek immediate medical advice. For use in beef and non-lactating dairy cattle only. For prescribing information, talk to your veterinarian or visit Zuprevo.com.
We didn't just design the 6M tractors with you in mind. We designed them with you by our side. The new 6M tractors from John Deere, reimagined by you, for you. With improved visibility, better maneuverability, and more ways to customize, so you get everything you need and nothing you don't. Experience the new 6M at your local John Deere dealer.
Are you concerned about the impact government policies could have on your cattle business? One way to make your voice heard in Washington is by joining NCBA. When you join, you'll have access to key policy updates and insights from Beltway Beef. It's the best way to hear directly from NCBA's DC team. Beltway Beef provides valuable policy information, and it's free for NCBA members. Stay in touch with Beltway Beef. Join now at ncba.org.
For many years, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, with funding from the Beef Checkoff, has conducted market research to better understand consumers and their views about beef. Here to talk more about these efforts is Sean Darcy, NCBA's Senior Director of Market Research. Sean, I guess I'd begin by asking you, why is it so important for NCBA as a contractor to the Beef Checkoff to keep tabs on how consumers' attitudes and preferences are changing as it relates to beef?
Well, thanks for having me today, Kevin. Well, I'd say it really lays the foundation for all of our Beef Checkoff programming that we do, from understanding the consumer perspective in a variety of ways. We look at that in our tracking data that's funded by the Beef Checkoff, 1,500 consumers a quarter. And then we also do specific programming on topics like sustainability or e-commerce or summer grilling to understand and make sure our campaigns are more effective as they go on. So we're able to keep a pulse on what we do in the market. And when we see things, and I'll use beef production as an example, while not as many people care about that or are bringing that into consideration as taste and value and convenience when they're making a meal choice, it's grown over the last 3 years when we look back to 2018. So we're able to use this research, identify those needs, and work with our checkoff programming to understand how to market behind that.
And tell us more about how this data is captured. Is this focus groups? Is it electronic surveys? Is it telephone call? I mean, how are you capturing this data and how often you're capturing this data?
Yeah, I'd say it's all of the above, really. I would say most of the time it is focused on our online surveys that we're gathering people. Again, the Consumer Beef Tracker is a good example of that. 500 consumers a month, 1,500 a quarter. It's continuous in nature, so we're always getting consumers, and it's everyone. It's not just one demographic, it's not just one area of the country. We balance that to census to make sure we get a representative sample and understanding of what consumers are looking for, but we also utilize techniques like focus groups, one-on-one interviews, things along those lines to get the depth behind specific topics or campaigns that we might have.
You know, during the convention we talked a lot about sustainability, and I'm curious, what does your research tell you that consumers want to know about beef industry sustainability?
Yeah, it's really an interesting question. When we did focus groups, the first thing we noticed, it was a struggle for consumers to go all the way to food when they think of this word sustainability, right? It's a very broad word, has a lot of different definitions to it in a variety of ways. So when we talk sustainability, right away they're able to talk about lasting, the earth, the planet, recycling, water bottles. Everyone's got a water bottle, right? That's how they're able to show their convenient way of being sustainable. But when we actually dig on food, we get a lot of, I don't know, how does that apply? Now, for the more interested people on the topic of sustainability, we did see the first thing they focused on was animal welfare. Consumers are further away from their food than they have ever been. There's a low knowledge level there, so they want to know more about the treatment of the animal, what's behind it. So first and foremost, that is sustainability to most consumers. But then we do have that layer of the environment with about 30% of consumers bringing that up as it relates to sustainability. I would say it's more high level. A lot of times we can get, whether it's greenhouse gases, water, land, we get really specific, but consumers themselves are still thinking about the resources behind sustainability in general, making sure producers are taking care of their land in a high level sense.
So John, how can we use the research results you're collecting to help hone and sharpen our message as it relates to sustainability?
You know, that's a great question. We've done a breadth of research, focus groups, quantitative assessments, and we're working with our programming areas, our marketing team, our reputation management team, to get those messages out there. But first and foremost, animal welfare is that biggest thing we need to reinforce consumers, because that lack of awareness and understanding of the beef industry. But upcycling shows tremendous potential. Educating consumers on how cattle can be a benefit to the land, utilize that land that can't be used for other things, really does resonate with consumers. They like that message. Now, the term upcycling itself is a little confusing, so it needs context. We need to be able to provide that, but using those clear, concise examples behind them really resonates well. And then minimizing beef's impact, wherever we can not do that, it works better. Consumers will think it as us being defensive in a way when we're trying to justify the amount of water or the amount of greenhouse gas that we do contribute to. So anyway, now there's going to be situations where we may need to talk about that, especially from a reputation management standpoint, and be out there with that. But when we're talking about a broad consumer campaign, any way we can focus on those benefits beef's providing the land, the animal welfare message, those are the things that are really going to resonate with consumers.
So what's your message to our viewers and beef producers in general about what they can do to ensure that consumers have a positive image of beef and the beef industry at large?
I mean, honestly, the biggest thing I can say is tell your story. Okay. We continue to see when we humanize the industry, which NCBA has done through our checkoff programming for years now, and we'll continue to do that, it resonates well with consumers. Over 60% of consumers find producers at least very credible. Only 7% are actually distrusting consumers. And I think sometimes the hypothesis may be the opposite. But people want to hear from people close to the food, the people that are raising the animals. So that would be my message, is make sure you're telling your story, how you're impacting the animal, the land, and those things around you.
Well, thank you for continuing to inform our decisions as we position and market beef for the future. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin.
If you'd like to learn more about the beef industry's market research efforts and see some of the latest data yourself, you can visit the website beefresearch.org. So as you just heard, consumers are still choosing beef when they make their shopping decisions. Reporter Russell Nemitz has more from a recent Cattlemen's College session that offered advice on how producers can capitalize on this positive trend.
Well, consumer demands are constantly changing, and buying habits are influencing the beef industry. And that's why Dr. Jason Lusk from Purdue University was here at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Nashville to talk with cattle producers about keeping beef center of the plate. And first of all, Dr. Lusk, thank you for joining us here on Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Let's talk about your messages to the beef cattle industry here in Music City this week.
Sure. So I think you highlighted the focus. Is beef, has it been on the dinner plate, and is it going to continue to be on the dinner plate? And I think the long story of beef over the past 40 years or so has been a slow, steady decline in per capita consumption, but I think the really last 5 or 6 years has been pretty strong demand story in spite of a lot of negative publicity related to environment and health concerns. So I'll try to talk a little bit about some of those concerns and how to address them.
Well, one of your positive slides that we saw here in Nashville was it does look like consumers still like beef on their plate, and that is encouraging considering all things.
It is, particularly if you ask people's perceptions about beef, particularly as it relates to some of these emerging threats from plant-based alternatives. Consumers, on average at least, still have a very positive image of beef, particularly in terms of taste, in terms of price, and I think this is a very positive story, for beef going forward. But you can't take it for granted. You still got to, work to continue to provide a good product and put it on consumers' plates.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that continues to be a priority of organizations like the NCBA and, of course, cattlemen and cattlewomen out there in the country. Dr. Lusk, let's go ahead and talk, though, about kind of an emerging challenge out there, if you will, plant-based meats and how the beef cattle industry really goes forward with that now as an option for consumers.
Sure. So we've done a lot of consumer research on this topic, and there is a non-trivial share of consumers that are interested in and want to try these plant-based alternatives. So in some of our surveys, for example, you can get between 10 and 20%, depending on how you ask the question, of consumers wanting to try those alternatives. So that's a large share of the market. Now, when you do a deeper dive, what you see is a lot of the people interested in those plant-based alternatives are people that weren't buying a lot of beef to begin with. So maybe an obvious one is vegetarians or vegans. Well, they weren't going to buy meat anyway, so they're not really substituting away. But the other thing we see is, these new alternatives are appealing to younger consumers in particular, and so I think that's something to think about because, if they hang on to those preferences as they age, that could be a threat to the industry. So how do you engage that younger consumer crowd, make sure beef is something they like and want to keep on their plate?
Yeah, finally, Dr. Lusk, let's just talk about how important it still is for producers to tell their story to consumer, because everything that I see, consumers still like to know and have that relationship with their food producer.
They do, and I think particularly in light of what we've just lived through for the last year and a half with COVID, some of the concerns about meat packing plant shutdowns, really more than ever, people want to know where's their meat coming from, is it going to be there tomorrow, and then beyond the supply, the price, they want to know, is this good for the planet? Is it good for me? And I think being able to understand some of the nuances that are there and being honest, sure, beef cattle production, like any production, has greenhouse gas emissions, but here's what we're doing to try to counteract those and do our part to be responsible, I think is an important message to be able to convey with consumers.
Well, we appreciate you joining us here on Cattlemen to Cattlemen and joining us here in Nashville this year for the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show, empowering cattle producers out there to continue to tell their great message and deliver that important message to consumers.
Now, if you were unable to attend Cattlemen's College in Nashville, you can still access the information from the event. All the sessions were recorded, and they'll be available for viewing online. Just visit ncba.org and click on the Producers tab to view this valuable content. Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll show you how an Angus breeder in Tennessee is using data to achieve big results. That story when we return. Stay with us.
Join the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. NCBA is the oldest cattle industry organization, working every day to defend your interests in Washington, D.C. And there are big benefits to being a member. You'll get news you can use in the National Cattlemen and policy updates from Beltway Beef, plus big discounts from John Deere, Cabela's, and more great partners. Join now. Call 866-233-3872 or sign up online at ncba.org.
Grass is the center of our universe. We've got to have a grass program that we can count on and plan on. That's what we need to sustain us, to keep us growing, to keep us prospering.
Producers need to constantly evaluate every aspect of their operation to help ensure they're profitable and sustainable. Cattleman to Cattleman reporter Brad Bulla is in East Tennessee to learn how one Angus operation is using careful research, planning, and data to reach their goals.
McGinn Angus might not look unusual. They're putting up hay and caring for their cattle like any other producer in East Tennessee. But John McGinn founded this operation only a few years ago, after a business career far from the farm.
I got my first Angus cattle in 2018. I started out with commercial cattle initially. I bought this place. I escaped Northern Virginia, living in a townhouse, and I wanted a little land. And when I got the land, my neighbor had some commercial cattle, and it was kind of like, well, you know, I can either mow it or I can let them mow it. So I started with commercial cattle, found out quickly that there wasn't any way for me locally to make money with commercial cattle.
John's career in finance and information technology included lots of experience with data analysis. So on the farm, he analyzed his market opportunities and quickly shifted to a purebred operation focused on creating exceptional Angus female genetics.
There's always a market for elite cattle. And because I didn't have so many cattle, it was like, well, why don't I do an evaluation and figure out what would be the ultimate cow. So I spent, probably 4 or 5 months really evaluating EPDs, talking to some of the breeders. I had some really good mentors along the way to talk what they were doing, right, wrong, or indifferent, just to learn from. By nature, I ask a lot of questions, so I asked a whole lot of questions. And then I got on the whiteboard and I put together what I thought would be, a great cow, genetically.
In fact, John created his own algorithm to select the highest value traits. And he ended up producing what was, at the time, the #1 Angus heifer in the nation.
So, I got either lucky or my algorithm really does work. But the balance was great because, that first heifer had all of those traits. And she was #1 in the breed for $C, $B, and $F when she came out, with calving ease, with a big, I think her yearling weight was like a 198. So she was great across the board. Her structure was really good. And, she performed. My genetics are for sale. I really am trying to breed the best donors in the breed. I'd like my legacy to be that cattle for generations to come started with some of my offspring.
As he's worked to build his cattle operation, John has kept his off-farm job. Even so, he remains sharply focused on bottom-line results.
I keep all of my inputs in QuickBooks. So, I run all sorts of reports. I know what it takes me to keep a cow for a year. I know right down to the penny what it cost me for embryos to make them. So, I really track all of my inputs.
Obviously has a lot of knowledge, so he's unique in that he can tell you down to the penny what he has in his cattle. I think he's very data driven, tracking his costs, his inputs, and then the results at the end.
West Hills Tractor is where John turned when he bought the farm and needed machinery to get the land in shape and to begin cutting and baling his hay.
So when John first came around, we obviously didn't know him. He wanted to get into the cattle business and needed a supplier for tractors and hay tools and other farm equipment. But he was basically starting from scratch. He bought some property, didn't have any cattle, didn't have any equipment. So we sold him his first tractor, and then we sold him some hay equipment after that and developed a relationship.
I established a really good relationship with my local New Holland dealership. Chad's my salesman. I know the owner, Tim, well, so working with them and trying to really figure out them understanding my need for speed, because I have a day job and I need to be able to be efficient with my time. Buying the right equipment, I'd rather buy, more robust equipment that's going to help me do the job faster.
The thing I found out about John right off the bat was it was more than just, hey, I want a hobby to do. He had a desire to do this, and his thing is he wants to have good cattle, healthy cattle, and he wants to take care of the land, and he wants to leave it in better shape than where he got it, and he's done that. And so we began to talk about the equipment he's going to need.
So I have a compact track loader. I have a T5 110 cabbed New Holland four-wheel drive tractor. I use a New Holland baler. I use a New Holland rake. I use a disc mower conditioner that's a New Holland. I grind all my hay because I don't waste any that way, so I had to buy a hammer mill. I needed a mix wagon. So I bought a number of things, and the dealer's been my partner all along the way as I bought all of the equipment.
With the same skills he uses to analyze the genetic traits in his cattle, John also tracks data on the performance of his New Holland equipment.
I look at the service life of it, and I come out with an hourly rate of what does it cost me over the course of that machine's life to run it. So that's the base rate. Then if it uses fuel, I factor in, what's the fuel consumption per hour for the piece of equipment. And then I look at the service interval and what's it cost to service that piece of equipment by the number of hours. And I come out with a blended hour rate of what every piece of equipment on the farm cost me, and I track it.
As important as his machinery is to him, knowing he can count on good advice and reliable service from his New Holland dealer is critical for John as well.
I just can't say enough about West Hills Tractor and the service that they provide, both in the repair shop, the parts, and even supplies. Hay season, they're crazy busy, but they've been out here in the middle of hay season where I broke a chain on the baler or, needed a belt repaired. So in general, it's just the fact that, I know they're a partner with me. Whatever I need, they're right there to help me. They're a phone call away, whether it's working hours or not. I just get great service from them.
When you care about that person, you're going to want to make sure that they're getting the best bang for their buck in what they do. And that's what we try to build here at West Hills Tractor.
Reporting from McGinn Angus in East Tennessee, I'm Brad Bulla for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
One of the highlights each year at the Cattle Industry Convention is the huge NCBA trade show. And today finds us at the New Holland trade show booth. They have two displays this year, one inside and the other outside. And with us is Mark Lowry, a familiar face and name here on Cattlemen to Cattlemen. And thanks as always for joining us here on the program to talk about some of the latest and greatest in agricultural technology from you folks at New Holland. And today we want to talk about this awesome new self-propelled windrower out here.
Well, thanks, Russell. And first of all, we're excited to be back in Nashville. A little different time of the year, but really our coming out party for trade shows as we start to think about the end of 2021. But behind me is one of the most productive self-propelled windrowers in the industry. It's our new, for model year 22, speed rower. And really the main points are precision and productivity. The machine behind me has one of our widest heads at 19 feet. And this machine is capable of operating with auto guidance at 20 miles per hour in the field with available 30 mile per hour road transport. So when we talk about productivity, this is it.
Absolutely. In production agriculture, efficiency truly is the name of the game. And when the sun is out, you have to make hay, so to speak, right?
You got it. And we understand that very well. Hay is in our DNA at New Holland. And so when I talked about that wide head, we've really redesigned this machine from the head to the tail of the machine. And so when we think about the Durabine 419, again, that 19-foot header that's on the front, from cut quality to drying, because that's where it's at in hay, to be able to lay down a nice even swath to dry quickly. When the sun's out, we've got to make hay. We want to make sure this machine can get through the field faster than anybody else, cut cleaner than anybody else, and be able to help you put hay away no matter what package you're putting it in.
Absolutely. Well, we invite folks to stop by their local New Holland dealer back home and either check it out for themselves or even just get their hands on some information, whether it be in their hot little hands or find it online. But let's talk about this trade show in particular, Mark, because it is a great opportunity to connect with cattle producers from across the country, introduce them to some new technology like this, and just most importantly, network and have a little conversation.
You got it. This is the best opportunity for us to be connected with customers. Look, our engineers and our field test folks are out in the field working with them. Guys like myself that might be behind a desk a little more than what we like, get an opportunity to talk to real cattlemen here at events like this. So we look forward to it, and again, happy to be back at this industry convention because it's so important for us to talk to the people that are dealing with issues every day.
Well, as always, we appreciate you joining us here on Cattlemen to Cattlemen and talking about some of your new technology available to farmers and ranchers across this great country of ours.
Well, thanks, Russell, and we're looking forward to a good next couple of days here in Nashville.
All right, sounds good. Again, we'll be talking with New Holland's Mark Lowry about their new and exciting self-propelled windrower. With that, we'll go ahead and send it back to you.
To learn more about how New Holland equipment can help your operation, just visit their website, newholland.com. Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll examine the important relationship between corn and cattle. Plus, we'll discuss the latest beef export numbers and examine the opportunities for the year ahead. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
When the field is your office, you never get tired of going to work. Cut, rake, bale, repeat. New Holland offers the power and versatility to get through the day. From small squares to large squares and everything in between, New Holland has you covered. Visit your local dealer today to find out more. New Holland.
If you're looking for the best in cattle industry news, information, and education, then don't miss NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Each week we cover important topics such as herd health and cattle handling, plus updates with congressional and industry leaders about today's top policy issues, and stories shot on location at cattle farms and ranches around the country. Don't miss NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen on RFD TV and on YouTube.
Corn and corn growers have long played an important role in the beef industry. Here to talk more about this partnership is John Linder, the president of the National Corn Growers Association. John, corn and beef industry have long been very complementary industries. Talk to us about the value that is created between those two industries.
You know, that's a great point because obviously many corn farmers raise beef, many cattle farmers raise corn, you know, saying the same thing both ways. So there's a lot of symmetry in this type of operation. And for us to actually be able to partner with the cattlemen is really important to us as corn growers because there are so many, how should I say, interesting things that we have for challenges that very much are so relatable that we can do better together. And so that depth is something we've strived for years to hit and attain. And I think we've really, in this event that we just attended, really pulled some of that together. So I expect good things to come out of this relationship.
Well, let's talk about that. So you and other leaders of the National Corn Growers Association attended and really engaged in this convention this last week. Why did you choose to do that, and what value do you see as a corn grower in engaging with the beef industry in something like this?
You know, livestock's 40% of the core market for us. You know, we really have to be cognizant of the fact that we need a relationship with our value chain. And I would love nothing better than to see every bit of corn disappear in a value-added product. So beef, what a great place to land. And we have partnered with them with an education series where we've offered grants to help the producers of beef better themselves. And that's some of our corn checkoff dollars going towards our value chain.
Let's talk sustainability, a big topic at the industry convention and a big topic for corn growers. What are you all doing relative to sustainability?
You know, we found that several years ago we really needed to focus there. We started with the Climate Task Force to really find out where we're going to play in this environment. It's years back. So we landed in the sustainability effort because that is part of our goals coming out of the Climate Task Force, and I feel like we landed very solidly. We had a corn sustainability advisory group for which we actually took some of our subcommittees of board grower leaders, brought them together and worked on this project for a few years. Got a great report. You know, it takes 41% less land to produce a bushel of corn. It takes 41% less energy to produce a bushel of corn. And this is in a window from 1980 to 2015, so 31% fewer greenhouse gas emissions in that same time period, 58% less land loss to erosion. And with that also water, 46% more efficient use of water. And that was what that report revealed to us. So from there we were able to establish some goals, and that outcome has been really good. So we're going to reach for those goals by 2030.
Okay.
So it's also in a range of 12 to 15% in each of the categories for which we want to be better at.
Okay.
A nice balance of attainable and stretch.
Yep.
You know, you have to set goals that may be a little difficult to reach, but boy, if we get the technology and innovation and the adaptability going, maybe we have to reset those goals. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be great.
And multiply that through our value chain, work side by side with the cattlemen in their sustainability effort. Maybe be a very complementary effort going forward.
It's critical to all of us and a topic that's not going to go away. So let's give our audience just a little bit of a tease. We have an episode coming up that is devoted fully to the relationship between the beef industry and the corn industry. Do you want to give people a sneak preview of that episode?
You know, that was such a fun event. You know, go to the Certified Angus Beef Association and spend time with you and Don Schieffelbein and bring some of the corn producers in as well, and leadership at Certified Angus Beef. I think that panel discussion really brought us together to the point that we realized we need to be focused together. Hence why we came to the convention as well and tried to build on that. So.
Well, it's a relationship that has been going strong for some time, and I think can strengthen even further into the future. Thank you for your leadership and your vision of pulling these two industries together.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. Now, as John said, we've got a great program coming up this fall on the relationship between cattle and corn. So stay tuned to Cattlemen for more details on this important partnership. In the meantime, if you'd like to learn more about the National Corn Growers Association and their efforts, just visit the website ncga.com. The importance of exports to the U.S. beef industry has been well documented, and the U.S. Meat Export Federation works every day to enhance demand for our product overseas. Joining us now to talk about these efforts is Dan Hallstrom. He's the president and CEO of the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Dan, we talk a lot about demand, and clearly beef demand has been on an absolute upswing. Talk to us about the export portion of that. What is the year shaping up to look like?
Yeah, Kevin, a good question. Despite all the uncertainties around COVID-19 globally and the rebound, so to speak, from that pandemic, the beef demand globally has been very resilient. In fact, it's on fire. We are seeing dramatic growth, in some cases growth larger on a consumption basis than pre-COVID. Wow. So our forecast year to date through 6 months, we're up 18%, which is easily a new record over 2018. And our forecast is somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 to 15% growth for the year. We may have to even adjust that up. So, and the beauty of it is that the growth has been broad-based. It's not one or two countries. We're seeing 7 or 8 countries contribute. So I think, at least for the time being, things are looking pretty good on that front.
That really is positive news. Yeah. We're 6 months into the Biden administration. What has President Biden's trade agenda meant for the U.S. beef industry?
Well, I think we're still waiting to hear some of the details around the agenda, but it looks optimistic. We have a couple of key trading positions that have to be filled yet within the administration. Of course, Greg Dowd's old position, the chief ag negotiator, is one at USTR, and Undersecretary McKinney's old position, the Undersecretary for Trade. Those are two key positions that need to get filled, but I think hopefully they'll be filled sooner rather than later. The other thing that we're optimistic about is the 2 pending trade agreements that were started under the Trump administration with Kenya on the Africa side and the UK as well. So I think those are some low-hanging fruit that I hope we can capitalize on soon.
We always talk a lot about the promise of the Chinese market. Give us an update on what you see happening in China.
Well, if you had to pick one market that stood out incrementally, it would be China. We had the phase 1 deal implemented for beef in March of 2020, and we came from a very low base at that time. And right now we're sitting at about 600 million exported this year, which would make it the third or fourth largest export market. And the beauty of China is that we're really not competing against any domestic production. Our high quality or high quality grain finished beef, the marbled beef, is unique in that aspect. So I think not only is it going well now, but there's room for continued growth.
That's good. You talk about diversification and not being so singularly dependent on one particular market. Are there other emerging markets that you think hold promise for the U.S. beef industry?
I think that's the key, actually. We have our mainstay markets, Japan, Korea, Mexico, which are doing very, very well. But we have Central America. There's 5 or 6 countries in that region. You've got South America with Chile, Peru, Colombia, and you've got a continent like Africa, which we've only scratched the surface of. So, yes, I think the key to success here is diversification and really trying to expand growth in a lot of these small emerging areas that won't be small 5 or 10 years from now. Right. So this, I think, is one of the keys.
Well, that's great news. We appreciate what you and your entire staff does to grow demand for beef globally. Keep up the great work.
Well, thank you, Kevin. It's our pleasure.
Thank you. Now, to learn more about the work of the U.S. Meat Export Federation and its efforts to enhance U.S. beef demand overseas, you can visit their website, usmef.org. When we return, it's time for a weather update with meteorologist Matt Makins. So stay with us.
Cattlemen and women are dedicated to managing their land and cattle in a sustainable way. They want to leave a legacy for future generations. For more than 30 years, the Environmental Stewardship Award has worked to honor these caretakers of the land and to share their stories. To find out more and to learn how you can nominate a farm or ranch for the Environmental Stewardship Award, visit the website environmentalstewardship.org.
We know you're up before the dawn because the cattle rise before the sun. And you spend long hours in the saddle because the herd isn't always over the next rise. And you care for the land because you know it takes care of your family. And we know you do great work. And it's time to tell that story to the marketplace. IMI Global is here to help you do just that.
Did you know that Prefert makes over 1,000 different farm, ranch, and rodeo items? And now, thanks to Prefert Direct, it's easier than ever before to get access to every item Prefert makes delivered direct to your local dealer. For more information about Prefert Direct, visit us at prefert.com. Prefert, America's #1 name in farm, ranch, and rodeo.
Time now for Weather Watch with meteorologist Matt Makins.
Matt Makins here with this week's Weather Watch. I hope this finds you well. In the past several Cattlemen to Cattlemen episodes where we've included weather, we've chatted a lot about temperatures, drought conditions. Let's bring that and then take it forward, and let's look into the fall, winter, and spring. So we'll start off with areas of improvement in the drought situation and then chat about what La Nina strengthening will mean for your winter outlook. Now, as far as where we've seen the drought conditions improve, there are some notable improved areas in the Midwest. Parts of the Corn Belt have had a lot of water recently, in some cases too much. The Desert Southwest has overall improved the most this summer, however, due to the monsoonal flow. It's not been a great monsoon, but at least it's something. Those are the grain shades where you see the drought has improved. The vast majority of change to the drought, though, throughout the course of the summer has been to see the drought numbers increasing. The amount of areas in drought have increased throughout the course of the summer, but at least we are having some areas, although spotty, where we've seen improvement. Now, with La Nina strengthening, what does that mean for the winter outlook? Not good for the western U.S. Not just this area of ocean where it's colder than average. That's the El Nino-La Nina region, called the ENSO region, indicating La Nina to stay. Off of California, there's cold wet water. Off of the coast and also throughout the Gulf of Alaska there, that's warmer than average water. The Atlantic is warmer than average. All these ocean basins are going to tie together, and all of their fingers are pointing to a very dry western U.S. We would have to change the oceans quite dramatically to change the outlook I'm about to show you. So let's get into it. It's not just the winter outlook, but what you're about to see is the September through May outlook. And we're looking at very likely the likelihood of dry conditions across the western U.S., another area of drier than average conditions for the northern high plains, although that area appears to be smaller than it has been recently. I do think we have just enough of a chance here. We may see some good snows or some even fall rains and some spring rains, where we may see some okay conditions for the high plains up into the Rockies. Also, another area of moisture will be Texas out to the New England states. But you can tell, western U.S., terrible water quality, a terrible groundwater situation, and the conditions will sadly get much worse with another year of La Niña on the way. That was a quick look at what's happening this winter. In your fall edition of your Directions magazine, look for the full winter outlook, broken down by your region.
From the very beginning, Ritchie has been dedicated to one thing: helping people deliver fresh, constant water to their animals. Today's Ritchie waterers rely on a valve design that remains much the same as it was in 1921. It's a simple idea. Do it right, and the rest will take care of itself. We never set out to create a company that would be around for 100 years. We just wanted to create something great.
Cattle producers across the country work hard to care for their animals and their land. The USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service is there to help. Find out how you can work with NRCS to develop a conservation plan for your operation. Find possible funding resources for implementing conservation practices, or get free expert advice on ways to improve your farm or ranch. Visit the website nrcs.usda.gov today.
The beef industry needs people who are willing to talk to consumers and answer their questions about how beef is produced, from pasture to plate. Joining me now is Kaya Twisselman-Burchett. She's the 2020 Beef Advocate of the Year. Kaya, let's begin and just tell us a little bit about your background in the beef industry.
Sure. So I grew up in production agriculture. My family's been ranching on the central coast of California since late 1800s, so I'm the 6th generation. So grew up with really beef in my blood. And then, I did 4-H and FFA. That really started my advocacy journey, and was really active in ag and college at UC Davis. And my first job, my first big kid job, was actually working for the Kentucky Beef Council on behalf of the Beef Checkoff.
Good morning, I'm Joanna Coles, and May is Beef Month, and Kaya Twisselman, she's with the Kentucky Beef Council, Director of Consumers Affairs, is with us today.
So that kind of really brought my advocacy to this professional space, and in an unexpected turn of events, after embarking on my own health journey and losing over 100 pounds, giving me the opportunity to be an advocate in a way that I never was before, I became a cattle rancher turned accidental life coach, and now I get to advocate for beef as part of a healthy diet and lifestyle.
Well, I want to talk to you about that. You are a strong advocate for how beef fits into a very healthy and active lifestyle, and tell us a little bit more about your health and fitness journey.
Yeah, so I've always known that beef is really one of the most nutrient-dense foods out there, but I felt like I wasn't always walking the walk when it came to living that healthy diet and lifestyle. And so I finally really took ownership of my own health, starting with my mental health first, and really just honoring my body well with nutritious food like beef and movement as well, and just really being an example of what it looks like to care for your body well, mentally and physically, and to be able to show people how to do that while incorporating beef has just been the greatest reward.
That's fantastic. It really is cool that protein is now king again, isn't it?
Absolutely.
People recognize beef as a very nutrient-dense protein. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And I think the main thing is that when it comes to creating a healthy diet and lifestyle, you got to make sure that you eat foods that you enjoy. And let's be honest, I mean, it is hard to beat the taste of beef. And so I think it's double bang for your buck. Not only is it delicious, but it's also an incredibly nutrient-dense food. It pairs well with other incredibly nutrient-dense foods like vegetables and fruits. And so I feel very proud that I've been able to embark on my health journey and seeing such great success while incorporating beef as the center of the plate, and really to show people how that can be part of their diet as well if that's a protein that they enjoy too.
That's fantastic. And another part of your journey, of course, was a participation and involvement in the Masters of Beef Advocacy program. I'm curious, how did that program give you the tools and techniques that you can use to really develop a following on social media?
Yeah, I can't say enough great things about that program. I got involved with it when I was working on behalf of the Beef Checkoff in Kentucky, and what it really does is it helps teach you the talking points and simplify some of the things that, we can get caught up in our own jargon in the beef industry, so it helps us really understand how we can communicate that in an approachable way to consumers, which has been wonderful. And working on behalf of the Beef Checkoff too, the media exposure and experience has been incredible, and I would have never guessed how making recipes on the morning news would set me up so well for what I do now. Over the last year, I've had the opportunity to be in People magazine, on Good Morning America, recently on the Kelly Clarkson show, and thanks to the Beef Checkoff and the Masters of Beef Advocacy program for teaching me how to express myself and speak on behalf of beef and so much more.
What an awesome advocate you've been, and I want to talk about social media because you have a huge following on social media, and what does that kind of national platform provide in terms of opportunities for you yourself and the beef industry at large?
Yeah, so I feel like I kind of accidentally became a social media influencer. It was not intended to do that, but it's been so cool to have this platform and really just a place to tell stories. I think what's important for us to remember is that people don't connect with statistics. They don't always connect with science. Those are great tools, but people connect with people. And the way that I really grew this platform was by storytelling and just connecting at the human level. And I think that that's what's so impactful about social media and really being able to broaden your reach, especially over this last year where we haven't been able to connect with people face to face. It's a great tool to be able to share those stories and to really have a platform to connect with people about health and wellness, but also to show them a glimpse into what it's like to be on a cattle ranch without them ever having to come and visit.
Well, you are a very articulate and charismatic spokesperson for our industry. I hope you keep it up. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Anyone with a genuine interest in promoting the beef industry is encouraged to enroll in the Masters of Beef Advocacy program. There's no cost to participate, and you complete the program on your own schedule. Just visit the website mastersofbeefadvocacy.com for all the details. Well, that wraps up this edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks so much for spending time with us. We'll see you again next week right here on RFD TV.